Joining us now on the Window Nation Fan Guest Hotline. He covers the Ravens for the Baltimore Banner. It is Jonas Shaffer. Jonas, what's going on?
How's it going, guys? Good to talk to you.
Yep. Not bad, man. Appreciate your time. As always, we got to have some familiar and new faces introduced the other day out at the Castle. Any major takeaways from you from the press conference the other day?
Yeah, I thought it was refreshing, I guess is the word, that Declan Doyle, while obviously hugely praiseful of Lamar and everything that he can bring to the table, said that there are some things that he needs to improve and was didn't just stop at kind of glittering generalities. Like, he went into specifics. He talked about footwork. He talked about, getting to be better on your first read. So I'm just very, very curious about how exactly this offseason will proceed, and if there is a way for, how quickly Lamar Jackson and Declan Doyle will see the game the same way as passing concepts go. I think obviously, Lamar didn't need to be completely, of parallel thought with Todd Monken, over the years, because he was just so good as a creator, and the offense had enough talent that he could get by. And obviously, he won one MVP, should have won two. But I do think you look back at some of the comments from T. Martin before last season, and he was talking about wanting Lamar, my interpretation, to basically play, to play as a quarterback through a more conventional lens. And I think that with everything that Declan Doyle has been through and the kind of coaching staff that he's been a part of, that will probably be his mission. So I'm just curious to see how this partnership goes. It's going to be really fascinating to watch, especially once we get to training camp and they really kind of, pour that game plan and that playbook through a fire hose and see what sticks and see what doesn't and work from there.
Jonas, the thing that I took out of the whole thing is when Declan said that he expects everybody to be there. The odds on Lamar being at OTAs is what?
I'd say above 80, 90%. I think everything that we've seen from Lamar, or I guess everything that we've heard about Lamar this offseason would suggest that he is tapped into this process, even if he's not taking Steve Bisciotti up on his offer to fly on a jet from Florida to Baltimore. I think the fact that, there is this dialogue with Declan Doyle and Lamar, that he was on that call for an hour, according to Declan, the fact that there really hasn't been a whole lot of whispers about Lamar not being a good soldier in all this process. And, sure, it would have been nice to, have heard reports of him coming out to Baltimore, but as we know, that's not really his style. And I do think that he recognizes that, there is some mounting public pressure, even among the Lamar stands, for him to, be on that first ship to this new land of Declan Doyle and Jesse Minter land. So I think I'm optimistic about him being there. Is he going to be there for all 10 OTAs? I guess we will see. But I do think that I would safely bet that he's going to be there for the majority of the practices. And maybe we won't get access to all of them like we did with John Harbaugh last year. But I do think he'll be there for the ones that matter. And, maybe he'll be there for enough of them to collect that $750,000 bonus.
We're talking to Jonas Shaffer, who covers the Ravens for the Baltimore Banner. It is Vinny and Haynie on 105.7 The Fan. And Jonas, so much, everybody's kind of wondering what Declan Doyle, how he'll operate in this, not a necessarily new role, but new responsibilities. Calling plays is his show right now on the offensive side of the ball. And look, like Lamar's won 2 MVPs with 2 different coordinators. He has had premier offenses. How different do you think this offense will look or should look under Declan Doyle?
I think I don't think it'll look super different. I think the Ravens had a good mix of, heavy personnel, under center, pre-snap motion, all this kind of stuff that you see that is characteristic of a lot of the best offenses in the NFL, or at least the most creative offenses in the NFL. It wouldn't surprise me if we see the Ravens go to more under center stuff because Lamar is really, really good at that. And, that maybe lessen some of the burden on Lamar to do read option stuff. So I think it'll be, it might be new terminology. It'll definitely be a new playbook, but I don't think unless they just make some huge splashy signings or fail to sign, a Tyler Linderbaum, and that changes what the calculus is for Lamar about what he needs to do before the snap, that there's going to be a dramatic difference in terms of his responsibilities in 2025 to 2026. Obviously, how he sees the game and how he goes through, his reads, I think is something that we'll all be watching. But I think basically the kind of stuff that Ben Johnson wanted to do in Chicago is not all that different from what Todd Monken wanted to do in Baltimore. And you could even say Greg Roman a couple of years before, like running the ball is very important. Being effective on play action is very important. Dictating to defenses with heavier personnel is very important. If the Ravens feel like they have the dudes to do that, then I think that's what Declan Doyle will lean into.
Jonas, what's the incentive for Linderbaum to get a deal done before free agency?
Not much one. Just if you really like being with your guys, then that is the incentive. It's how much interest does Tyler Linderbaum have in doing what Ronnie Stanley did last year, which was kind of walking the Ravens fans up to the brink of mass hysteria, and then realizing, you know what, I don't want to, go out there and enter into a bidding frenzy, from with the New England Patriots and the Washington Commanders and all these other teams that needed a offensive tackle. I'm just going to go back to the team that I love, go back to the teammates that I love, go back to the home that I've made for myself. And maybe if that means taking a couple $1 million off what I would otherwise make, then that's fine with me. So we'll see. I mean, it's just very, very tough to guess what exactly his market would be out there because, pass protection matters. And even though, 2 years ago, I think you could say he was one of the better pass protecting centers in the NFL. The past 2 years, maybe this is a George Warhart problem. He was not that. And I think some teams will take that into account when they're, just figuring out what exactly the calculus is in what this guy is worth. So it could be that the Ravens get to the open market and they still have, they do have the best offer out there. But obviously the hope from Aaron Costa, as he told, Todd France and those podcast guys earlier this week, like they have some work to do to keep him. And obviously the closer we get to March 9th, the shakier everything starts to feel.
Jonas, I left that presser the other day. It kind of, I guess maybe that was the first day it really dawned on me that it's like a new era for the Ravens, right? Because you get to see all the new brass up there on the stage, and you're hearing different voices, you're hearing a different type of messaging, and it just feels fresher and obviously younger. But it's a lot of new right there. Can you, just from the few times we've been there so far in the offseason, like, can you feel the difference, I guess, in just the changeover that the team has gone through?
Yeah, I'm like to a degree. You don't get a whole lot from these kind of sterile press conferences. To be honest, I think Cordell, when you're rattling off all the new changes, I thought you were going to point to Jesse Minter rocking the Andrew Whitworth look with the.
Well, I didn't get to the wardrobe changes. That's maybe arguably the biggest change that we've seen so far.
I think that is You say a lot by what you wear, and that is something that John Harbaugh, I think, did not have in his wardrobe. And if he did, he never thought to put blazer over hoodie. I think the thing that that I've considered, I talked about on my podcast with Paul Mancano, is just like, what exactly does it mean to play like a Raven in this new age way that Jesse Minter was talking about? Like, and I do think that matters. Like, you could say that this is just a rebrand that is necessary for season ticket holders. It's a rebrand that's necessary for the locker room, but like, there has to be some substance behind that messaging. Like, if you say that we're going to change what play like a Raven means, and ultimately the substance is not there, then that is something that I think players are going to pick up on, coaches are going to pick up on. Like, if nothing actually changes in terms of how you approach this team or how you approach your management of the roster, then you will already start to feel those messages ringing a little bit hollow. So I don't know what exactly play like Raven means in the way that Jesse Minter is kind of reimagining. I think it might have to do with what he harped on, or what he kind of underlined in that first press conference last month, where he wants the Ravens to be at their best when their best is needed. Is that what new age play like a Raven means? I think that's something that I'm just kind of curious to ask players and coaches and even mentor about as we get closer to the season. Like, what exactly changes for him? Because, there are a lot of guys on this team who still do play like a Raven, and there are only so many ways that you can play football effectively. And I just don't know what exactly this reinvention means for the locker room, for how he approaches practices, for how he approaches off the field stuff. I think that's something I'm really, really interested in finding out.
Jonas, two-parter. Do they get the deal done with Lamar before the start of free agency, number one? And then the second part is, what do you want them to take at 14? Or what do you feel like they need to take, and what shouldn't they take at 14?
I'm an optimist by nature, so I guess I will say that the Ravens get a deal done with Lamar. It's impossible for me to have any sense of where things are, because Lamar doesn't have any people. The castle's locked down when it comes to Lamar matters. It's just a lockbox for over there, obviously. And then at 14, I think I'm really intrigued by the possibility of getting a X receiver there.
Really?
I don't know. Like, I've seen some people that I really respect say that Jordan Tyson is not really the prototypical X that you would want. Like, he's more of a Z, and that doesn't really change like the optimization of Zay Flowers. And again, like, I think nationally Zay Flowers is a little bit underrated because he's had like a top 5 season last year in yards per run. He was like 7th in total receiving yards, but I still think you can get more out of him if you don't ask him to be like the guy who is the backside on a 3-by-1 concept. Like, you want him to have some freedom to run around before the snap. So if you can get Jordan Tyson, if you feel comfortable with his potential there as being the X receiver, and you feel comfortable in his medicals, I think that would be really attractive. I guess I'll have to see how Vega Ioane tests. I don't know if he's going to be the kind of fit for the run game that the Ravens want to run under Dwayne Ledford. But, listen, Declan Doyle has experience in gap schemes under Sean Payton. So maybe we're all kind of overstating the fact that the Ravens are for sure going to transition to this rushing offense that's like 80% zone, 20% gap schemes.
Jonas, great stuff as always, man. Appreciate your time today. How can people keep up with you and follow your work?
Yeah, man. Obviously, we're going to send a small army to Indy. So many Ravens connections down there at the Combine. So watch out for that. And yeah, obviously, follow us for coverage of Royals training camp with Andy Koska being down there and breaking news and doing a great job.